Oh, God.
Great.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. I will just...
Hello, Casey.
Hello, hello. So nice to see you all. I will just mute everyone, and then we will start thinking about the first and second movements of Mendelssohn Opus 13. There we go. Just to start, a little overview of this piece. Obviously, we know Mendelssohn wrote it when he was very young. He wrote it only a few months after Beethoven died, and there's a lot of similarities and parallels between this quartet and the Opus 132 quartet. Also, the Opus 95. So looking at the middle movement, but Opus 132 and this first movement have a lot of parallels, and it's sort of interesting thinking about, in some ways, maybe not like a, they're not direct quotes, but it's an influence, isn't it? And we can really feel Beethoven's presence in the music, I think. And also interesting to think in the sense that Beethoven's late style really wasn't understood at the time. And for Mendelssohn to, be so overwhelmed by it and musically to really want to reference it is something really ahead of his time for really a teenager. A lot of the things I've read obviously talk about how in 127, 132, you're really thinking in Beethoven, there's no happy ending, you don't feel resolved at the end. But actually in this quartet, when we look at the coda of the fourth movement, in that slightly con moto feeling, you really do feel like there is a sense of resolution in a way that maybe for a young teenager you feel like there really is some hope, but possibly for an older Beethoven there wasn't. So it's an interesting different take on it. But yeah, I think that's a really good place to start thinking about Mendelssohn's quartet, about this quartet, because also we think of it as a young piece, but he was really referencing an older style and a new style, a new idea. But yeah, Carmen, do you think we should start with listening to just the opening?
Yes.
To get ourselves in the zone?
Yes, we'll give you a taste of some of the listening samples that we put together. Let me bring this up first a minute. Share sound. Pardon me. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
You see the Vermeer quartet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how this goes. Yes, and so shall I end it there for now?
Great. What do you think of it? I thought it was a bit wobbly, the vibrato at the beginning.
We should listen to it in contrast with the mosaic
with that
recording
other
that's
group.
coming,
Yes.
just for complete contrast. I mean, it's so old style. I mean, I've listened to Schmull's, the first violinist lessons, quite a lot. And obviously my husband's studied with him. So there's a lot of that sort of history in my violin training. But, you know, I could hear his let's play sharp, you know, nothing's out of tune. If it's sharp, it's not out of tune. He had a real expressive ear for intonation. And you can hear that in there, you know, like sharp was not sharp. It was just, you know, bright and yeah, there's and you can really, it's quite old school, but yeah, it feels steady to me. I don't know what you feel.
I mean, definitely that, you know, actually I was listening to a lot of American school of quartet playing this morning for Mendelssohn, and then there is something very assuring to me, assuring about this. And you know, one of the difficulty for me for this piece is there is this young Mendelssohn's passion in here, and then we as a player we can also get kind of hyped up with it, and then you know, to kind of address that drama effectively, how to do it, I think that's challenging. And then somehow this kind of American sound, it's quite solid. I mean, solid chordal things. To me, for my listener, if I listen as a listener, there is something kind of assuring about this. So I liked it. And actually, contrary to how Leo felt, I thought they're using quite a lot of non-vibrato sound in the like softer dynamics. In the
Tamaki, do you mean reassuring?
Yeah. Reassuring. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought. Interesting.
Well, they used the subito pianissimo was non-vibrato, wasn't it? But up until then, I just thought it was very automatic. The vibrato was just switched on, and there it was for every note. And I sort of have a bit of an aversion to that whenever I sense that. I think, But
it's just the style of sound that is thick, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting to think about is, you know, we're talking young Mendelssohn. How old do we want to feel at the beginning? You know, how stable do we really want to feel? And, you know, it is quite a questioning opening. It is, you know, we think there is that little link. I'll post the poem, the song that he wrote that was connected to this, you know, about the question. So in contrast, similarly to Beethoven, you know, there's this question idea that Mendelssohn has. But you know, there is a way of playing that doesn't tell you that all is fine. I know it does feel reassuring, but in some ways, is that the character? Do we want at the beginning? I mean, you know, it's the beginning of the piece, the beginning of an 18-year-old's piece.
I know, but like if he is he had the direct influence from late Beethoven. So in his head, in Mendelssohn's head, like what he's there, like, you know, it's like really hyper mature, 18 years old. His head, it's like already there, that how Beethoven is feeling at the end of the life. I don't know. It's a question.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying in my sectional the other day, was that it sort of at first seems like it's going to be a very young piece of full of sort of hormones and stuff. But it's actually extremely mature, isn't it? It's no ordinary 18-year-old. So I'm not sure how it. I mean,
can we look at the score with your markings on, Carmen? Just whilst Leo.
Yeah.
I want to look at a bit of the harmony.
Let me share this. There we go. Now, how's that? Can you see?
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. So I've just put in the. You can see that the subito pianissimo I've put in F sharp major in a circle. That's really the. That's probably the most significant moment, right, in the first line, and that's just because the very beginning is just outlining the fundamental chords. Immediately we get chord 1 going to chord 4, the subdominant D major, then 5 E major, and then back to 1 A major. And then the next couple of bars are the same three chords in slightly different order, ending in one again. And then it goes up into the heavens, up an octave, everyone, and then goes to F sharp major. And the voicing is slightly different. You can see in the viola it's slightly, to make it more of a surprise. But I think that moment really is the moment that shows immediately his influence from Beethoven, going to F sharp major there, which is this third relation. Which, as again, I was talking about in my sectional before, if ever you go from one chord to another chord 3 notes away, it always has this amazing sort of lift feeling, which Beethoven basically used first before anyone else. It has this feeling of sort of, you know, this revelation feeling, or sort of looking around the corner and suddenly an amazing view is there, or something like that. So that's really significant immediately. That's clearly like sort of the point of the opening, as well as asking, of course, the question you see in the second line, is it true or is it real? Ist es wahr? It's based on the song by Mendelssohn.
Can we just look quickly at the end of the second bar? Because for me, there's something really special about what he does here. I always feel that chord, so the D major, there's something really beautiful about that progression that we do. I think it's partly to do with the rising line in the first violin contrasting to the lowering in the cello and the viola. So figuring the spacing, the way he does it, the widening of intervals with the second violin in the middle. There's something about that movement that I always feels to me something extra, that chord, the third beat of bar 2. I always have I don't know, it's not just sort of normal. Da-dee-da-dee, da-da. There's something that, okay. Because you could sort of da-dee-da-dum, da-da-da-da, you know, but somehow he takes links.
Well, it's I think it could be the contramotion, the symmetrical nature of the first violin and the cello.
Yeah.
If you imagine for a second that the cello, instead of an F sharp at the bottom, plays a D, which is, it would sound, that would be parallel, and that would sound very clunky and very sort of unsubtle. Whereas here it's a much gentler version of D major with the F sharp at the bottom, and then it expands out into the well, that's A major, isn't it, with the second inversion, and which is a beautiful arrival.
Yeah,
so yeah, it is a really
first inversion. There's something about that first inversion chord.
Yeah,
Always, every time we play it, I think, wow, there's something about this chord that I find really beautiful.
Really, sorry, I just wanted to add to that, like how satisfying that crescendo moment is about 3. Adding to that, what's really significant is how he is disguising the chord of tonic 1 chord in this, you know, opening statement. I mean, he has 1 4 5 1, but the tonic he used, you know, the quaver tonic, and then crochet tonic, but in piano, right? So like he's really not. I mean, that's direct reference to Beethoven's, isn't it? Like just obvious Beethoven's influence here. That kind of like use that sort of really surprise things in the very beginning. It's like, you know, Opus 59, Beethoven kind of things. And then that's why. True. That's why that you know, the phrase that's so kind of satisfying, really glorious. Yeah,
he immediately goes to chord 4.
Sorry,
it's like he you know, the first quaver upbeat is barely noticeable, is it? It's sort of, it doesn't establish the key, it goes immediately to the subdominant, getting to the heart of the matter.
I mean, it works, right? Like to omit the quaver upbeat. You think like he could have chosen
to leave it out.
He could have done, but I think also it's a slight reference to the Ist es wahr.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a slight dotted rhythm, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but I think there might be something to that. But
I'd be curious to hear another version, the Quatuor Mosaïques, which is here as well. So do you mind if I pull that up as well?
That's great. Yeah.
again, just as a different style, let me, here we are. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, as the mosaic, so it's interesting to hear the beginning, but it's also really interesting to listen through because their pacing is so completely different. And maybe we can, when we get towards the end of the first movement, we can just listen to a couple different versions of the end.
Yeah.
Just to hear the different, in terms of the beginning, we're in a calm space, but as it gets more het up, the contrasts become even greater in this recording. It's very interesting.
Oops, sorry. Wow, that's very interesting. I think what's great is to hear so many different versions and especially ones that are so far apart from each other because they reveal different qualities of the music that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise.
What it made me just playing made me think is that well, I think Mendelssohn was quite religious person, right? I think.
No.
No.
Pepper says no.
No, I don't know.
In comparison to Beethoven, he was. But
okay. If we hear the kind of opening chorale, like how Vermeer played, I think there is no doubt that's kind of human's voice. Mendelssohn's this song, singing things, one of his blueprint of purity, and there is no doubt it is a human's voice. But if I hear like how mosaic play, I was questioning, it's just like human's voice, or is this the voice coming from the from God, or somewhere? It has that kind of it's an open kind of weird question.
It sounded a little bit more like choral music. I don't know if you felt that in the dee da da dee da da with the lines of the accompaniment lines. It felt, because they were quite simple, the way they lined up actually was very much, I could hear that I felt like people were singing basically, but in a very simple, it took me back to his choral music rather than thinking of it as the sort of really espressivo, sort of romantic style that I've come to think of it. So it's a very interesting way of thinking. What really struck me actually, you know, the E in the viola,
Mhm.
in the opening, da da dee bom, da da dee bom, dee da 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 dum bom. I really felt there was a connection between the 2 bars before the allegro, where we go into that pause, sort of quasi pause on the E, unison E, before Carmen takes us off into the viola takes us off into the allegro. I felt there was a real connection from those pauses before. Somehow there was a link, really a clear link, which actually I thought was really interesting. And then da 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 took us into that. So the note itself, the E, somehow had quite a significance with the balance that they chose.
Interesting. It's evolving in a way from what is, you know, is it true? I don't know. But then you have it da 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 da. Maybe that kind of evolution.
That's
Yeah,
a
you could
small
make a
electro-
you could.
Sorry.
Sorry, Tamaki.
No.
You going back to your point, actually, that you could make a case and easily make a case that the beginning is very heavenly and very sort of, you know, otherworldly and sort of too good to be true, and then the is it true question comes up. You know, is it all a dream? And it turns out it is. It was all a dream, and he wakes up and if you look after the pause, so just 3 bars before the allegro starts, the viola plays an F before going back to the E, and that F is very, very significant. Is that F, it becomes this sort of, well, you can see it's the cello comes in and the second violin comes in with this F that's just always trying to escape. It's a bit like that that hellish F sharp major quartet we did of Haydn, or F sharp minor quartet, where he was constantly trying to escape. And I think that F is a real constant attempt to do that, and just keeps failing and keeps failing. Every now and then gets to F major for a bar or something, but then the crushing reality comes back. So it seems to me like the adagio at the beginning is really his ideal, like how he wishes it would be, how things ought to be. And then the allegro is, you know, really how things really are, just a constant struggle and a battle.
And a reckoning of sorts with the reality.
Yeah.
Life is tough.
Should we look at the score and get to the second subject?
Oh, yes.
So we're looking.
Just score. Let me pull this up. Sorry, I'm a bit clunky with my sharing today.
No, it's you know, we actually you know, when you practice this without the dotted rhythms and then you come back to the dotted rhythms, I always find it's makes the dotted rhythms have more meaning. So if we go down to, we look where we actually remove the dotted rhythms from our lives, that passage there, here we go. Yeah, so we're in dotted rhythm world, aren't we? And the dotted rhythms are just passing everywhere. And an important, a really important feature of the movement. And then, because he brings it in the opening. And then we get to after many fortes and fortissimos, we get a completely different character. There we go. That doesn't say what bar number it is on there, but 59.
Oh yeah, so it's so annoying. That's my fault. I know I could go through them and put them on for next week.
Wow.
Put the bar numbers on.
Oh, well, we can see how we do. But there we go. So he takes this sort of, well, you know, you were saying, Tamaki, about Mendelssohn's religious, as he was actually quite conflicted because he had Jewish ancestry and was raised as a Lutheran. So there's a kind of confliction, and yet he wrote, I think the reason we think of him as religious is because he wrote quite a lot of choral, music. But I think it was an interesting sort of challenge in his life. I don't think it was something that was simple for him. But here, what is that piece?
I put it there. Look, it's
the clarinet quartet.
That's on the note on the right. Says it. The quote.
I didn't realize that, Leo. Yeah. Wow.
Also in the viola, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
It's exactly the same. There you go, a little quote from Mozart there. Okay, so we get into much more stable rhythm, much more you know, square. isn't it? The middle passage. We're kind of, what I find challenging in Mendelssohn is the way that he slurs a lot of these things, because it's very, they're either in long slurs, or they're like chopped up a lot, which you wouldn't want to play. So I don't think he was thinking of the physicality of playing. So this theme, I think, is really obvious for that, because if you look, it's quite squarely written. Now to bow it, you want to bow it in like a variety of ways to keep the line, don't you? And to join sort of the cello line and not just make it 2 bars. You really want to make it a 4-bar phrase. And use the sort of pedal and the viola to keep you going, rather than feel very stuck.
And then he takes it to a more earthy place in the second violin. I always, perk up kind of when I hear this played in the second violin, because it's such a like gravelly color, like earthy color, almost folky in a way sometimes. So, you can transform from being a little bit, square, or you're not sure, to like this, ooh, okay.
He also removes all those grace notes. The accompaniment has become a little simpler.
Yes.
That, by the way, that's where it says Neapolitan in a circle to the right. That, again, always is an attempt to escape. So that's always back to that idea of finding the F. It's here in F major. Always is an attempt to escape, and then the pianissimo after is incredibly disappointing that we can't. That comes back again and again. I really noticed that it's sort of a theme of this piece. Also, just at the top left of the screen there, you can see A minor and then going to F sharp 7. That's the same thing that happened at the heavenly transformation in bar 6 or whatever it was, when it goes to F sharp major. Exactly the same idea. It's again like trying to find that magic again, but here it's just somehow full of troubles and sort of human problems. But yeah, constantly trying to always look for that raised semitone, which is basically the Neapolitan. It's always just the semitone above. It's always this attempt to push out of where we are.
So just clarifying the Neapolitan. So that's at bar 63, 3rd beat. Leo, is that right? Yeah, that one, right?
If that's it, I don't know.
Yeah, it's where we go to C major. Yeah. Da-dee-da-dee-da, where actually everything lightens up a little bit. Where very close moment it lightens up. Okay, if we look at the cello theme, because I always think it's very interesting how he gets it. First of all, how he gets into the cello theme, the sort of quite just down one more line, stay. Just how he gets so high. Yeah. Just I always find this, it's quite virtuosic writing, cello writing, to be in unison with the first violin. And how he comes into it, if you look at the climb in the score, the cello's always looking up and the violin's always, answering, coming down. And then da 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 dum. I mean, in actual terms, you really don't need that B in the cello, apart from to make this timbre. It's such a different kind of color, I always think, to the violin B. We're an octave apart, aren't we? We're not.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an octave apart, but there's something about the timbre of that sound in the high cello that really draws the ear to the cello line.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to sound sort of hysterical and mad, just really like really losing the plot, getting really upset here.
And I always find it interesting, this like contrast in markings. The first violin, it's the sforzando on the quaver, da-dee, and the cello is re-emphasizing the beat, da-da, and the fact that the violin sort of dies away, leaves, and the cello's still hanging on. You think of the like lining things up. It's a sort of interesting corner, and it's obviously just for the color, that color of the cello, and it draws the ear much quicker to the cello sound than it would if you didn't have it there. And then the difference in markings of your con fuoco da-da-dee-dum and my agitato but piano. Again, it's like the same theme, but I don't see this in other composers, the way that this is written. I find it really unusual when I'm playing. And I always think of, for me, that's where the tension and the turbulence comes in. Have so many piano dynamics, or, you have a theme, mezzo forte, which feels right. And then to come in quieter with the second version of it. You know, it's so different. It's like he's not trying to better it.
That's a good way to put it, that phrase of tension and turbulence in this music, and how to portray that as a composer. You know, what kind of tools is he using to also create that in the mind of the musician. Like when we play it, you know, I mean, you can look at it, you know, quite academically, you know, just from analyzing the score, but actually the feelings we take from the manuscript into our parts. I always feel tense and turbulent in this movement. So what has he done to our mindset to affect that? That's always a very, I think that's a skill in a composer, actually, because not many composers can do that, how to impart this emotional feeling into your playing so that you pick it up immediately.
I mean, often, you know, piano and forte dynamics markings are raw dynamics marking, but often we can sort of refer to intensity level, right? Like piano, like soft, and then soft feeling, and then forte is more edgy. But in Mendelssohn's this music, piano is intense. You know? Pianissimo is also often quite turbulent.
The danger, I think the danger of this piece is that, and we've talked about it a lot in rehearsal, but the danger is that one gets a bit tired of listening to that sort of level of turbulence over and over. Like I think you lose your audience and you lose your structure if you just give everything at the beginning. In some ways, the theme is quite simple, right? Da, da, dee, dee, da, 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 and not much changes. It comes back sort of 3 times, and it's pretty similar. You know, at the end, we finally get to the F. But I think in order to sustain the interest of, you know, like people's listening, you have to grade what you're doing. Because if all your fortes are like that, I don't know, I think you get bored.
Yeah.
That's why the question we had, and then, you know, we presented in the beginning, how old do we want to be? You know, how mature do we want to be? Yeah. I think we talked something like we passed that teenager things and kind of looking over the teenager face and kind of recalling that angst, but like coming from slightly wiser place or something.
Yeah. Shall we just keep going through, because it'd be nice to just hear a couple examples at the end. So let's just look at the development here, where he takes that opening and just turns it into, I mean, the problem, because what we were trying to do is to find the big moment, you know, where is the biggest moment of the movement? I mean, this has to be one of them.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like violin concerto.
Yes. Yeah, violin concerto in a slightly awkward key. It's not a very comfortable place. But what I think is interesting is the Beethovenian way of that he cuts. If you just go down a little bit further, so we have all this angst and sforzandos, and then he cuts everything and becomes pianissimo, and that subito there, and the rumbling that actually goes on quite a long time. The sustaining, the contrast of emotion, I think, is really effective, but also means that you are in a state of limbo for quite a long time rather than a very short amount of time, if that makes sense, sort of in contrast to the shorter phrases that we have earlier. These semiquavers in the violoncello go on until we get back, don't they? Until we sort of da 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 da, just at the bottom of your stave, the bottom of your screen.
Also the like this in the violins, you know, this section that is building up, I mean, it's, you know, he could have held chords, but rhythmically he still wants that boiling, you know, the bubbling to be affected somehow until it explodes, pretty much. Until it explodes back into the da 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 da. You know, you haven't escaped somehow.
When we reach the fortissimo, the end of the page. So when we reach that section, when upper three are singing, pam, pa, pa, you know, the dotted rhythm. So like suddenly dotted rhythm has different quality isn't it? Like until there's like ton to ton, ton to ton. It's full of angst, whether it is, you know, whatever the dynamics here. But here, like it's definitely singing, right? Like so I mean, how do you describe musically here this section?
Is this the first time that we're looking back with the dotted rhythm? It feels kind of broader. I don't feel like I'm pushing. For the first time, I'm not pushing forward.
Yeah.
Actually, from the beginning, actually, this is the first time I feel like I don't have that arrow going forward when we get here. And then that sets up this moment of reflection that we're about to reach.
Yeah, so how many bars of reaching, trying to reflection? 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, I don't know, 12 bars or.
Well, this is 125, and we finally 141, we start moving back towards with the, you know, we start moving here back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a long time to feel the, I don't know, to sort of go into a different space.
We lose the, you know, arrow definitely at this fortissimo section. Like it's kind of emotionally at the top, and we don't need to push anymore. Like we are kind of rising there, and then just long time just going into that pianissimo moment, isn't it? Like that's a long.
Yeah, I think this is basically his most successful attempt at escaping the horror of the movement. If you can, you just go up one line again. If you see there that it says the G minor going to E7, and then going to A minor, and then going to F sharp 7. So that's like the bit at the beginning. Think about G going to E. So there's a third relation again. It's another attempt to escape, and then the A minor going to F sharp 7 again, which is that's from the beginning and from earlier in the piece. And he sort of seems to finally burst out of this horrible E minor, and then it goes into, you know, C major, and then A minor, and then all sorts of other keys, and he sort of is free to explore finally with this amazing fugue, and with the cello just sort of happily just pointing out the way. It's sort of the most successful attempt, I think. And then ends, if you go down a little bit to where this ends, it just disintegrates, and he finds, as ever, even though he was free to explore, it always ends up at that doomed F natural. If you go down just one more line, see that F natural that then in the cello then goes to the E. That F always signals doom and sort of with no escape. Just like Haydn used it in that F sharp minor quartet, exactly the same way he used it. It's just trying to get out of this hellish E minor, well, A minor really.
Don't you find it interesting that we start, well, with the piece, I mean, this is the quartet in A minor, right? And we come out of the development, well, out of this moment into A minor. Like we're sort of there. And then he's saying, but we haven't really, it doesn't feel, I mean, this is the problem. We haven't resolved there. We're just dropping there. Don't you feel? But we're not, I don't feel any feeling of happiness.
No.
Well, obviously A minor is not a happy key, but
well, yeah, it's exactly my point. It doesn't escape. The attempt is very successful, but ultimately unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And sort of is free for a little bit, but then eventually is chained again.
Yeah. And then I think the important thing for the next section is to think about the beginning, you know, when you're playing it, relate it to the exposition and how things are slightly different, where it changes, how you find that connection with it. Or else I think you play it in a very in the moment way because of the way he wrote it, and you don't feel that link of the two. Like this was how it was at the beginning, and this is how we've been affected by what's happened, and therefore we play it in a different way. Because there are so many little subtle differences. It's not just a sort of carbon copy in a different key, in our home key, is it? There's a lot more going on with that. Now, due to time, do you think, Carmen, it's possible to play the ending with the abends, just to hear for me, the ultimate, the ultimate fervor, because the way they play the end is I find, you know, very heart pumping.
Yes.
So this is just the end. So this is the end of the coda. of the first movement. Unfortunately, we don't have many, there aren't many live videos of people playing. There are a few later on, but
Let's see how this goes. Woo.
I know, I think it's extraordinary. I don't know how they sustain that kind of emotion throughout, but I'm in there in my head. I find it, I mean, so turbulent. And in some ways, it's like they save all of the energy for the end.
Yeah.
And it's just, they, you know, where it says piano con fuoco, they just allow the middle voices to just come out and become exciting, saying, okay, we're not going to suppress. We're going to allow it to just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I think it's really effective. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, no, I
Amazing.
like that. Yeah, just like bubble over. But at the same time, you know, a feeling of like, yes, getting hysterical and all that. I felt that they were incredibly like together on every, like I felt like they were like a really smooth Maserati car. Like they just knew the power, they knew how to harness that power. So there's a kind of discipline in maintaining that. It's not just wild, but it's focused wild. And that energy makes it very powerful.
That's so true. Like again, like it's actually one of the first piece we played together, right, Carmen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the first piece we played in 10 years ago. And then there are so many performances we did. Like, you know, it's sort of like, especially this moment, you kind of get defeated by the
You're just tired by that.
yeah, you get like defeated by the drama. Therefore, we are not, it's so difficult to portray the drama so effectively because, you know, this hyper emotion all over the place. And then to keep that, harness the energy like that, and then to play the last chord like that, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess we should start talking about the second movement.
Yes. Can we hear an example? Is there one that we can watch of the opening of the second movement?
Let me find one. Actually, I haven't set it up, but if you give me a minute or so.
Jupiter is live.
Okay.
Nice to watch.
I'll find that the starting point. One moment.
Right. So if we think of that contrast then between the emotion we've just finished with, and the power of emotion that we've finished. And in some ways, I always wonder how you can keep going. You know, you finish with this amount of energy, and then to play what he writes next, I think is the it's the thing that takes you somewhere completely different.
One of the difficulty of like the first movement, he has this drama which is based in the motif of the singing things, but then like he keeps the singing things, but he used lots of rhythm and the motific things combined with it. Now the structure of second movement obviously, and the third movement too, but he has this, it's almost like singing section and then, you know, fugue, like motific section. So it's kind of, it's much easier to sectionalize, obviously, and then kind of thinking about the texture, different texture.
I think what I'll do is I'll play some of this into the fugue as well, just for so we get that. So yes, I just noticed that they started the fugue down bow, which I have not really tried. Pardon?
Yeah, I always do it down bow.
Oh, right.
I think it's better, but I've kept that a secret. Sorry.
Why is it better? Why is it better?
Because I think an up bow, you're doing an up bow because it makes the crescendo a bit easier.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't think it should be easy at all. I think it should be really difficult and horrible doing it. So I think the down bow gets that pain across really well.
Mm-hmm.
I should have said that in rehearsal, sorry. We could have tried it, but never mind.
It makes the descending line like da-dum, da-dum, like easier, isn't it? Kind of natural.
So that's up bow. Da 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 da, yeah.
I mean, I find da-da-da, like the second note to third note easier on down.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it, yeah.
Interesting.
It release easier.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a feeling I might do it down bow. I suddenly realized I don't know what bowing I do.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I do different ones.
Yeah.
I don't write anything in. That's never good, is it? If I don't write it in.
Yeah.
Do it differently every time. That's the
Yeah.
best way.
You know, I had Jupiter Quartet in 2003. Like I think at the time they just formed, so like they were together for 6 months. And then we were at Aspen together, and ever since like they won, Bound, and then just kind of but they played this piece back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
What's interesting, I thought was more interesting than the fugue bowing was the opening bowing. It never occurred to me to start on an up bow. But then you guys will all know, having I just don't like starting pieces with a a nice warm chord on an up bow. I find it really I find it really strange to come at a piece that way. I don't know why. It doesn't feel natural to breathe and to get weight in the sound at the tip of my bow. But that might just be my technique. But that was the thing that struck me. I was like, you start on it. And I think it's a practical decision. I think it's to do with the fact that he doesn't want to he wants to slur the first bar rather than separate. Because on a down bow, it's really difficult to feel that hairpin into the second bar. So I can understand. I think it can work and it's worth trying. But I always try it and then give up and go back to, but it's worth seeing and also worth trying without splitting that first bar. What I really did like about their, what is interesting when you look at the opening is the feeling of movement, like in a slow movement, where you move and where you hold. And what I liked about their version there was that their feeling of movement happened with the ta-da-da. That figure in the second violin was a very movement, like it had a lot of motion.
Sorry. I'm listening.
Yeah. Oh, Carmen, you've gone off. But yeah, that movement had like a lot of flow. I guess it's the feeling is flow. It's how in a very slow movement or non-lento but slow, how you feel flow and you don't feel stuck. And I think those of you who are doing our Mozart course, I think in the slow movement, that was also the conversation. Similarly, that was a con moto movement, wasn't it? That we were flowing within the slow. And the same thing here, adagio non-lento. So it's finding the flow. And I think that's what the non-lento means, is how do you find flow and how do you keep it going?
I think these composers must know how indulgent we performers are. And we like to just let's play it really slow and really enjoy every moment. And I think they're giving us a prod, like, don't forget, the direction's more important. This fugue, well, I didn't know Beethoven Opus 95 before, but I was doing a bit of research on this when I was marking up the score, and apparently this fugue is taken from Beethoven Opus 95, the slow movement, which I didn't know before this. It's why they call it VQ Discovery, I suppose. But it's very well worth listening to if you've got time. Go and listen to the Opus 95, if only the slow movement, just to hear. This must be a direct inspiration.
Oh, definitely, it is definitely.
Yeah.
I'll put the score. I've got the score. I'll put.
Oh, great! Thank you.
Score on the Classroom so that we can have a look at the similarities. It's so interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
Here's one more version I want to leave you with. Is that all right? It's the Artemis Quartet. Let's see, share screen again. Yeah. again, I'll just play where we are.
This is hilarious because it has like, it goes through different pictures.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can get into like a different zone.
And just ending it there, I think this picture is very funny that they show during the fugue.
Decided that was the way forward for the quite sad fugue.
Yeah.
The way you start. So okay, so what I think at the beginning of this piece is this movement, the contrast between the way that the voices are working. So you have everybody together, right? And then you have ya da da, you have the second violin. Then we have this moment with two violins. Da da dee, da da dee, da da dee, da 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 da. We're talking together, and then there's like the solo voice with with a blanket of chord, and it turns into a sort of slightly operatic, expressive improvisational bit, which changes in the second time we get it, right? And I think for me that the way of creating the sound between each of those worlds is important. So we have chordal at the beginning, then we have two together that makes, the thirds, we're working together. And then we turn into the solo voice. Yeah, you might need to make it a bit bigger because my eyesight's not very good. But it's just so obvious to look at, isn't it, on the score? But thinking about that with the type of sound and using that to make the contrast of the beginning, and what you're saying isn't necessarily totally different, but it's scored so differently that I always find that so beautiful at the beginning. And then we turn into the fugue, which is literally one person to start with, and how he develops that. That's always what I think about at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, partially when I'm listening to it now, I almost think this could be another iteration of the "is it true" conversation. I don't know, somehow just changed or variation. So it makes me really think about this da 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 da, these two quavers actually, and how you shape them. Do you come away? Do you keep it up? Do you keep it as a question, then which affects how what kind of technique do you use to show that expression? So that's something I've been thinking about over the last.
Why does he put espressivo? The next bit, because normally you would come away, wouldn't you? You go da, 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 like the normally classical way.
That's why, like this Artemis recording, they portrayed so well, in a sense, and successfully, because this fugue subject, definitely two parts, isn't it? Da, 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 throw the question.
Mhm.
Da, 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 da. It's almost like it's not answer, but you know, like the
Mm.
relation of part one and part two is like that. But
Mhm.
then Mendelssohn put espressivo there, which is quite, yeah, hard to I think hard to make sense. So they especially for the first two person viola and second valley, ta 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 ta, they played espressivo. So
Mhm.
no, it's slightly it's almost like slightly stretched.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I think, so as we go on, you know, obviously the da 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 thing gets, you know, gets us all het up. And I wanted to just again play a little bit of the Abens middle, because I think they do this like extreme emotion incredibly well. So can I just share my screen?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to play you the middle passage where the middle passage starts of the Abens, just because I well, personally, I love this part. This bit is one of my favorite bits. But the way that they create that energy, you know, you think of the quaver movement of the cello in the Poco più animato. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
Bar number.
Oh,
Are you
sorry.
in the mood for an adventure?
It just went away.
It was because
Discover Germany your way
Sorry.
with our interactive video.
Okay. I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Mm.
It's amazing. I mean, the range of emotion they get there is fantastic. I mean, for me, the most disappointing chord after that whole passage in Mendelssohn's writing is in bar 51, the third beat, which is that piano chord from everybody else and the arrival point of this section. And the reason that it works so well is because actually, really, it is not the arrival point, right? That it's the arrival of this emotion, but this emotion just doesn't, you know, isn't the real thing. We're not really there. It's that chord there. Yeah, I think in this, is it pianissimo for you guys as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go there. And I guess if this were a longer section, it would make sense. But because it's quite a short little burst of energy, the fact that he goes pianissimo means that you just have to keep developing, right? It's as if to say that he went away from the fugue and he wanted to get away from it, but actually he couldn't resist. He couldn't just leave it there. You couldn't say, oh, the fugue that was it. It was only a little thing. He's making it much bigger. Where he actually, the main climax of the movement much later on is much more effective, I think, because it's not just this emotion. But I don't know. I love that.
By the way,
The absolutely sorry, Tamaki.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the massive. I didn't want to get through this movement without just pointing out the dominant pedal that the cello has later on. It's about a page on, which really is the climax of this movement. There it is. This bit is just so amazing and crazy and just so painful. And I don't know how he's done it, but it seems to have put absolutely every bit of material from the whole piece into this bit, and every significant harmony as well. And it's just amazing how he summed it all up here with an amazing build up to it as well.
Also, because to balance it is really hard. Because what's exciting about this passage is, you know, the fugue layering with all this other craziness, but somehow you can, you know, there's so much in everybody else's part that you don't want to hear. What you really want to hear is the fugue with some background noise. You don't want to hear the first violin playing da 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 dee da 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 da. There's so much. I don't know what. It's sort of. It's like he kind of slightly lost the plot.
Yeah.
With all
he's finally really gone mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
makes
it's just
me
an
think-
amazing bit. I can't really wrap my head around that bit, to be honest. It's just crazy. And then after it, as you find, can you go just down a little bit to where this ends and goes into the violin cadenza? Yeah. So I put there, diminished is the only possible solution. Obviously, solution is not a adequate solution. But you find back in the first movement, he does that a lot. After a massive tantrum, you find at the end of it, it's a diminished harmony, just because he's all spent, all the energy is spent, and there's nowhere left to go. It's the diminished harmony is like, it's an amazing chord because it can be used as a sort of gateway to anywhere else, but it also can be used as a dead end, which is sort of is here. And then the dominant, when it comes back, the tempo one, the recap here is the cello has the dominant pedal at the bottom on the C, which I think always means that it is hopeful in every piece whenever the main subject comes back, but with a dominant pedal at the bottom. It's it's always an amazing moment.
If we compare like how the euphoric section in the first movement, and then he took 20 birds or something, he suddenly loses the arrow, and then you just kind of sink there, and then takes so long to kind of go down. Like, what, comparing to that moment to this particular bridge into tempo primo, and what first violin have to do here, from there to just leave you there to make your way.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of the octaves that you're descending, so you start on the top F, right? And you get to the lowest F you can play before. So F, G sharp is what we're doing in every octave. The 3 octaves is what we're doing. And it's just how you dissipate the energy using, but actually the notes he uses are reasonably simple. For such an emotional moment, he takes basically what you're doing and you just sort of come down in 3 steps to get to the bottom. And where we started and where we end, the pause on the F, it's just the energy and the timbre that's changed, but we haven't done anything. And I think in some ways that's what makes it hard to play, because you don't get the sense of resolve. All you do is you dissipate energy and sound. You give up a bit, basically. So you thought that you were going to like take over the world, and actually you realize that you're going to go back. You're going to be back in this beautiful, happy, sort of calmer place, calmer energy. Now, I think probably on that note, of course, we can't stick to an hour, so we'll probably have to say that's good for today, and let's continue next week. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope that's been interesting. I recommend listening to more of the selections. I will post it right now, and just click on the links, and you have a spare 10 minutes. You can listen to one of the movements and see the contrasts, and do share your thoughts about the different interesting bars, the way and the things you like and don't like in certain recordings. It's always interesting for us all to challenge ourselves. There's never enough time to listen to everything, so it's always nice to be pointed in the direction, listen to this bit. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Round 2.
Monday, yes.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Lovely to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.